Hello everyone. Life is incredibly diverse. Some people find joy in music, others are passionate about sports, while some immerse themselves in mathematical formulas, cosmic black holes, and distant stars. But perhaps the strangest and most unsettling of all are those who discover their passion within the world of crime. Have you ever wondered what could cause a woman who appears gentle and trustworthy within her community to gradually transform into a cold-blooded fraudster? What goes through her mind as she signs fraudulent loan documents, watches others collapse after losing all their assets, or even continues committing crimes as if by uncontrollable habit while already being wanted by the authorities? Today's story is not merely a financial crime case. It is a downward spiral driven by greed, a betrayal of trust, and a bleak portrait of a person who chose a dark path despite having countless opportunities to turn back. From a peaceful nail salon in Minnesota, to mysterious bank loans, to a casino in Iowa, and an intense federal manhunt, each piece of the puzzle will gradually be revealed. Please note that all content in today's video has been researched and compiled by our team from multiple sources. If there are any inaccuracies or details that require correction, please leave a comment below so we can promptly update the information. And if this story manages to keep you engaged until the very end, please help us share the video so it can reach a wider audience. At the same time, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to follow more compelling cases. Thank you all very much. In March 2017, family members and friends of Tram Pham, a nail salon owner in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, began noticing unusual signs in her life. Tram had always been hardworking and frugal, but suddenly she appeared extremely anxious and distressed about repaying multiple loans. Everything came to light when a close family friend helped her review loan records and bank documents, only to be shocked to discover Tram's name listed on multiple large loans across 4 different banks, with total outstanding debt exceeding $90,000, money that had never once reached her hands. Then, in her panic, the salon owner recalled a so-called credit score improvement service that an acquaintance named Mary Kate Wynn had persistently insisted on providing for her earlier. Tram immediately called Mary Kate Wynn to demand an explanation. However, the once enthusiastic and friendly friend began to evade her, sometimes claiming to be busy, other times not answering the phone at all. Suspicion quickly turned into terror when Tram realized she might have been deceived in a devastating way. Seeing her distress, her family advised her to contact the police immediately. That very afternoon, the salon owner and her friend went to the local police station to file a report. Through broken, tearful statements, the victim told a story so shocking that even investigators were stunned. In early fall 2016, Tram Pham needed a loan to expand her nail salon business. But her low credit score became a major obstacle. It was at that moment that Mary Kate Nguyen appeared, introducing herself as a financial consulting expert. Nguyen softly convinced Tram with a unique credit improvement plan. She would help Tram take out a small loan, repay it on time, and repeat the process several times. Each time, Tram's credit history would improve. Trusting Nguyen, Tram sent her many personal documents to prepare the loan application. But after the loan was dispersed, Nguyen demanded that Tram transfer the money into accounts Nguyen specified, and then she vanished, leaving Tram with a massive debt and the crushing pressure of interest payments. Given the seriousness of the case, it was quickly referred to state and federal investigative agencies due to the large sum involved and signs of interstate fraud. The official investigation began with the first key lead being the name Mary Kate Wynn, someone the victim knew, and the #1 suspect in this scam. As a first step, investigators collected every document the victim provided, including bank statements, loan contracts, and money transfer receipts. On their desks, the outline of the case gradually emerged through cold numbers and lines of text. 4 loans in the victim's name, each worth tens of thousands of USD, were dispersed around late 2016. In particular, there were multiple electronic transfers from the victim's account to unfamiliar accounts in the state of Iowa. So the experienced investigators immediately raised a question. Why would loan money taken out in Minnesota be transferred to Iowa? And could this be a sign of interstate money laundering? And if everything Tram Pham reported was true, then it meant the suspect had exploited trust to quietly clean out nearly $100,000 from the victim's accounts without raising alarm. From there, a criminal scenario gradually took shape under the working theory. Mary Kate Nguyen had used the victim's personal information to apply for loans at 4 different financial institutions in Minnesota. But instead of ensuring the money went to the victim as promised, Nguyen instructed the victim to transfer the funds to Iowa under the pretense of speeding up the repayment process. Put simply, Nguyen turned the victim into the debt bearer while she calmly took the money and erased her tracks. But more importantly, the entire scheme looked almost clean on paper. The victim voluntarily provided personal information and even made the transfers herself under Nguyen's instructions, without realizing she was helping a fraudster. So how could investigators expose her for what she really was? Right around this time, a critical lead emerged from Iowa when the Northwood Casino, located in northern Iowa near the Minnesota border, reported suspicious activity to authorities known as bill stuffing, meaning stuffing cash into slot machines and then printing out redemption tickets. According to the report, from late 2016 to early 2017, a group of people, later identified as being connected to Nguyen, frequently visited the casino, fed large amounts of cash into the machines, and then immediately cashed out as tickets without actually gambling. This tactic produced tickets that appeared legitimate, making it easier to launder dirty money. When investigators compared the timing and the amounts, they felt a chill at the disturbing match. The bill stuffing total at the casino was nearly equal to the amount stolen, and it happened right after the victim's transfers. From that moment, the crime scene of this financial case began expanding, from a paperwork-filled room in Minnesota all the way to the casino floor in Iowa. Investigators concluded this was no longer an isolated fraud case, but a federal case with a clear money laundering scheme. So they immediately submitted a detailed report to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, along with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation, to coordinate a deeper probe. Shortly after the case was accepted, a multi-agency task force was formed, including FBI special agents, Iowa investigators, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They began the journey of uncovering the truth behind the scam using the financial leads they had gathered. As a first step, investigators contacted the 4 banks that issued the loans to collect the full files. As expected, the loan applications had all been submitted by Mary Kate Nguyen on behalf of the victim, under the name of her company, My Second Chance Financing. However, the files contained multiple red flags, such as inflated income claims and vague, questionable collateral. Still, because the victim had provided genuine personal documents, the banks approved the loans, unintentionally creating a loophole that Nguyen exploited to the fullest. In addition, bank transfer records showed the money was sent to several accounts in Iowa, held in the names of individuals directly connected to Nguyen. Investigators followed the trail and discovered that these accounts were quickly drained through cash withdrawals at the Diamond Joe Casino in Northwood, Iowa. They immediately coordinated with casino management to obtain security footage. On the screen, Mary Kate Nguyen and several of her associates were clearly seen feeding stacks of $100 bills into slot machines, then printing out tickets just minutes later. The cameras also captured Nguyen carrying a stack of tickets to the casino cashier to exchange them for cash. This was direct visual evidence of Nguyen's money laundering. The tickets, each tied to specific transaction codes, were later seized as physical evidence. At the same time, in Minnesota, the investigative team reviewed Nguyen's social media accounts, email, and phone records. They discovered that Nguyen had contacted the victim through emails sent under the company name Second Chance Financing, in which she gave detailed instructions on how to transfer money according to proper procedure to build a cost-to-give, strong repayment history. In reality, the entire message chain was nothing more than a fabricated script. The emails and phone messages between Nguyen and the victim became undeniable evidence for the prosecution, showing that Nguyen intentionally deceived the victim into transferring money based on false information. All investigative threads gradually converged. By late 2021, the pieces of the case were sufficient to charge Mary Kate Nguyen. A federal grand jury in Iowa secretly convened and indicted Nguyen on charges of wire fraud and money laundering, along with a later charge of contempt of court for violating the terms of her release. A federal arrest warrant was issued while Nguyen was still living in Minnesota, completely unaware that the net of the law had tightened around her. On one morning in late 2021, Minnesota police, working together with the U.S. Marshals, carried out the arrest warrant. Mary Kate Nguyen was handcuffed right at her front door. Faced with clear evidence, she appeared strangely calm, denied all allegations, and claimed she was being misunderstood. Even so, Nguyen was taken into custody to await trial, During a search of her residence, police seized several documents, computers, and phones. From there, they uncovered valuable leads, including a notebook containing financial information, copies of the victim's identification documents that she had previously given Nguyen for loan paperwork, and even business cards bearing the name My Second Chance Financing Limited, belonging to Nguyen. All of this showed that she had carefully prepared her fraud plan, creating a seemingly legitimate cover to gain the victim's trust. But an unexpected turn came soon after, when a federal judge in Minnesota granted Nguyen conditional release pending trial, citing that she had no serious history of violent offenses and had promised to cooperate with authorities. Taking advantage of that opportunity, Mary Kate Nguyen disappeared from the supervision of law enforcement. In August 2022, she violated the terms of her supervision, used methamphetamine, and completely cut off contact with her probation officer. When law enforcement arrived to check her residence, Nguyen had fled. A federal warrant was immediately issued, launching an intense manhunt by the FBI and the US Marshals for a dangerous financial fugitive. As investigators tracked Nguyen's movements, they discovered she was not on the run alone. J. Anthony Tapper, a 57-year-old man living in Rosemount, Minnesota, became Nguyen's support system while she was in hiding. Tapper used his own name to book multiple hotel rooms for Nguyen to hide in, and he even purchased a travel trailer for her to stay in temporarily. Whenever Nguyen needed to move or meet someone, Tapper would go ahead to scout the area, acting as her eyes and ears to avoid police surveillance. The two also used prepaid phones and constantly changed locations across Minnesota and nearby areas. Throughout this period, Nguyen cut off all contact with her family and community, leaving many people around her confused about why she had suddenly vanished from everyday life. But what is most striking is that even while on the run, Mary Kate Nguyen fell back into old habits, continuing to plot new scams. She showed no fear. If anything, she acted even more boldly than before. In September 2022, while tracking Nguyen's connections, investigators uncovered a shady arrangement. Mary Kate Nguyen was preparing to meet a woman believed to be a new potential victim in order to pitch her financial services. J. Anthony Tapper accompanied Nguyen to this meeting and stood watch outside like a seasoned accomplice. However, by closely monitoring Tapper's movements, the US Marshals Task Force was able to trace Nguyen's hiding place. On a day in early September 2022, US Marshals, working with local police, suddenly raided a campground in Minnesota, where Nguyen was hiding in a camper provided by Tapper. After a few chaotic minutes, Nguyen was subdued and placed in handcuffs. At last, the female villain had been caught, bringing an end to more than 2 months on the run. Mary Kate Nguyen was detained immediately afterward. Yet, even behind bars awaiting trial, she still refused to give up her passion for crime. At the Sioux County Jail in Orange City, Iowa, Nguyen tried to contact people outside to continue planning a series of new financial fraud schemes in Minnesota and North Dakota. She provided forged bank documents to certain lending institutions, attempted to secure loans to purchase real estate, and was even reckless enough to take part in an auction with a bid of $1.3 million USD to buy the former federal courthouse building in Bemidji, Minnesota, using fraudulent funds or scam-based loans. Federal investigators were at a loss for words at just how brazen she had become. In addition, while in custody, Nguyen made threats toward investigators in an attempt to obstruct the collection of evidence against her. All of this was quickly detected through the jail's monitoring of mail and phone calls, adding an entire new set of incriminating evidence against her. And with such a relentless pattern of wrongdoing, it is no surprise that when people looked into Mary Kate Nguyen's background, they found a long criminal record. Mary Kate Nguyen was born in 1987 in Vietnam, but immigrated to the United States with her family when she was still young. Growing up in Minnesota, she became fluent in both Vietnamese and English, which allowed her to integrate easily into the local Vietnamese community as well as broader American society. On the surface, Mary Kate Nguyen presented herself as an independent, capable woman. She had opened or been connected to several small businesses, including My Second Chance Financing Limited, a company Nguyen founded herself. But behind that facade was a past filled with legal troubles. Nguyen showed signs of recklessness and serious moral distortion from her teenage years. Minnesota court records show that in 2005, when she was only 17, Mary Kate Nguyen became involved in a serious criminal case. She and her friends were accused as accomplices in armed robbery, kidnapping, and unlawful restraint, and were also linked to the use of forged checks. Although Nguyen was tried in juvenile court and received a lesser charge of aiding and abetting robbery, authorities still required her to register as a dangerous offender due to the kidnapping-related element. This was considered an early stain on Nguyen's record, one that would be difficult to erase. After reaching adulthood, Nguyen continued to spiral deeper into criminal behavior. Records show she had 4 prior convictions for theft by swindle, meaning fraud-related property crimes in Minnesota, as well as 3 convictions for driving while intoxicated. In addition, Nguyen was involved in other offenses such as writing bad checks, giving a false name to police, and possession of controlled substances. This long history painted Nguyen as a habitual offender, someone who disregarded the law and lived recklessly, closely tied to alcohol and drugs. In her personal life, Mary Kate Nguyen was believed to have experienced multiple family upheavals. She was reportedly married briefly before divorcing and had no children. Nguyen's social relationships were complicated. She associated with criminal elements across multiple states and was willing to assist in illegal activities. Some psychological analyses suggest Nguyen may have antisocial personality disorder, reflected in signs such as lying without hesitation, manipulating others for personal gain, and showing no remorse after each offense. The fact that she continued committing crimes even while being wanted or even while in custody suggested an addiction to scamming, an attraction to risk, or a delusional belief that she could outsmart everyone. With both old and newly obtained evidence, federal prosecutors built an exceptionally solid case against Mary Kate Nguyen. The investigation came full circle when the final pieces fell into place. From the nail salon owner who lost her money, to the lifeless casino tickets, to the dramatic flight from justice, and even the reckless schemes plotted behind bars. Together, it formed a complete portrait of a dangerous fraudster with no remorse. On January 10th, 2025, at the federal courthouse in Sioux City, Iowa, Judge Leonard T. Strand sentenced Mary Kate Nguyen. The courtroom was packed, with many local reporters and members of the public in attendance, especially people from the Vietnamese community in Minnesota. Before imposing the sentence, Judge Strand clearly stated his view of the case. He described Mary Kate Nguyen's conduct as astonishing and shocking, given the level of recklessness and repeated reoffending. According to the judge, the defendant's exploitation of the community's trust to commit crimes and then fleeing and continuing to offend even while in custody showed that Nguyen posed a serious danger to society in the financial sphere. Faced with those forceful accusations, Mary Kate Nguyen lowered her head in court, appearing remorseful and quietly apologized to the victim and the community. However, those belated words seemed to carry little meaning after everything that had happened. She was sentenced to 120 months in prison, equivalent to 10 years in federal custody. In addition, Mary Kate Nguyen was fined $20,000 and ordered to pay $131,175 in restitution to the victim to help remedy the harm. After completing her prison term, she must remain under supervision for 5 years to ensure she does not reoffend. The judge also noted that the federal justice system has no mechanism for early parole, meaning Nguyen will have to serve nearly the full sentence. As the sentence was read, Mary Kate Nguyen nearly collapsed, tears streaming down her face. Perhaps for the first time throughout the proceedings, she truly felt the price of her long chain of wrongdoing. Prosecutors and investigative agencies alike expressed satisfaction with the court's decision. In their view, a 10-year sentence was fully proportionate to the severity of the case. The acting U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Iowa, Timothy Duax, stated that this was a warning to those who believe they can exploit others and remain above the law, because no matter how far they run or how cunning they are, justice will ultimately be served. On the defense side, Nguyen's attorney appeared disappointed but acknowledged that the 10-year sentence was still lower than the maximum penalty, which could have reached 20 years if the defendant had not pleaded guilty. For that reason, they said Nguyen would try to rehabilitate herself in the hope of rebuilding her life in the future. Several months later, in May 2025, the accomplice J. Anthony Tapper also appeared in court for harboring a fugitive. Tapper pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 9 months in federal prison for sheltering and assisting Nguyen while she was on the run. The judge reprimanded Tapper for obstructing law enforcement and emphasized that he had helped prolong the victim's suffering. When Tapper received his sentence, every remaining link in the Mary Kate Nguyen case was officially brought under the judgment of the law. The Mary-Kate Nguyen case came to an end, but its aftermath lingered for a long time within the Vietnamese community in Minnesota, as well as among law enforcement. It has been seen as a cautionary lesson about placing trust in the wrong hands, and about the increasing sophistication of financial crime. Many people shuddered at the realization that the scammer can sometimes be someone familiar right beside them, ready to exploit victims at the very moment they are most vulnerable and least guarded. On local forums and social media, the case sparked intense discussion. Many people expressed outrage at Mary-Kate Nguyen's brazenness and cruelty, calling her a female scam mastermind who tarnished the image of a Vietnamese community long known for being hardworking and honest. At the same time, there were also voices expressing deep sympathy for the victim, arguing that stronger support programs and financial education should be provided for immigrant small business owners so they are less likely to fall into similar scams. Local media outlets also widely reported the case as a typical example of a new form of credit-related fraud, warning the public to stay vigilant against offers presented as overly easy and enticing financial opportunities. The case also raised lingering questions about motive and criminal psychology. What drove Mary-Kate Nguyen, a well-educated woman who once had the chance to integrate into society, to slide so far down the path of fraud? Was it bottomless greed, combined with a disregard for the law form during reckless youth? Or was it something deeper, an absence of moral standards, a coldness so extreme that she was willing to trample on community ties and basic human decency for personal gain? Perhaps part of the answer lies in the harsh sentence the court imposed. Society cannot tolerate that kind of criminal behavior. Behind prison bars, Mary-Kate Nguyen will have ample time to face and reflect on what she has done. 10 years in prison, the second chance the justice system has given her to wake up and reform, may or may not be enough to change someone who has grown accustomed to living by lies and deception. Only time can answer that. And you? What lesson do you take from this story that sounds unbelievable, yet is all too real? And in your opinion, 10 years from now, after her release, will Mary-Kate Nguyen fall back into old habits? Leave your thoughts in the comments so we can discuss together. And before you go, don't forget to like the video and share it to help spread the content. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again in the next case on Vietnamese Case Files.